You're listening to 23 Jungle Tales on the Sports Objective. Between now and opening day, we will talk to 23 former Pirate baseball players about their path to East Carolina, their time in the purple and gold, and what they're up to now. Now let's talk Pirate baseball. Welcome into the Sports Objective. Really appreciate you tuning in this evening. You're watching 23 Jungle Tales. Very excited to continue on with this special series as East Carolina baseball's opening day is quickly approaching right now. Very excited to have this gentleman with us. He played on East Carolina's 1961 NAIA National Championship team. Welcome into the program, Earl Boykin. Earl, we appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you for asking me.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to taking a trip down memory lane to talk about that magical season with the Pirates of East Carolina College back in 1961. But before we get to that, just take us back to the mid to late 1950s and talk about growing up in Eastern North Carolina. I know you're a native of Wilson County, so just talk about your days in high school and then your path to East Carolina.
Okay. I went to Rock Ridge High School, which is out in the county, and we were in a conference with 4 other schools in Wilson County, plus Bath, Belhaven, and Belhaven and Chocowinity in football. Baseball, we were in the Wilson County schools. They had 7 teams in the county, and that was our conference at that time. And we won the conference championship in both 56 and 57. And we had a really good ball club. Had 4 guys on there went to college and played. And one of them signed pro baseball after having a football scholarship in Carolina. And he wound up going to Atlantic Christian and playing basketball. So he was a great athlete named Bobby Atkinson. Anyway, that's you probably not interested in that, but we had a bunch of good athletes on that team.
Absolutely. So tell us about your path to East Carolina College. I know your coach during those years was Coach Jim Mallory, and Coach Mallory's an East Carolina Hall of Famer. I want to say he was inducted to the ECU Hall of Fame on the athletic side there in 1978. Coach Mallory was the head coach from 1954 to 1962, which was the year after that NAIA National Championship team that you were part of. So tell us about Coach Mallory and how you came to be a Pirate.
Well, I came to be a Pirate in that I pitched against Gaylord Perry, who went on to win the Cy Young Award in both leagues, and did a reputable job against him. He could throw it so hard. Anyway, Mallory and Coach Smith were umpires for that game. And he saw the kind of pitcher I was, and he asked me if I could come to school down there, which I did, and I'm glad I did. I met some great guys, great baseball players and men. And of the 13 that went to the national championship, only 6 are still living.
Wow.
Yeah, as far as Coach Mallory, he was an outstanding fundamental coach. Days that we rained and couldn't practice outside, we didn't go in the gym and take infield and stuff like that. We went to the classroom and we worked on fundamentals day after day. And he taught, we knew what to do if the men was on first and third, with one man out in the second inning. if they steal second, what to do, what the catcher should do, the mandates, 3 mandates of a catcher. He always taught that very well. I have a lot of respect for Jim Mallory, who later became the Dean of Men in East Carolina.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you about that. I was reading up on Coach Mallory, certainly familiar with the name, but I wanted to familiarize myself with some of his accomplishments in addition to that 1961 NAIA National Championship, which we'll certainly touch on here in a few minutes. But Coach Mallory, I noticed in his Hall of Fame bio on ecpirates.com that, like you said, he was Dean of Men. I think he took on that role maybe in '59.
Yes, he did. And he was he would take batting practice with us. So he was still a good hitter at that age. He was probably mid-50s when he was coaching us. And he would take batting practice, and he had line drives. He was from South Boston, Virginia. I went to school at Carolina, played baseball at Carolina. I was a really good player, and all he hit was line drives.
Now, tell us about during those years. Where exactly was the baseball field located? It was over more on the central part of campus, not too far from Christiansburg. Is that correct? I know the football stadium was over there, old College Stadium.
It was right behind. We walked out the back door of the old gym, which is Christianberry Gym, and you'd walk out the back door, and the backstop was right there at the back door of the old Christianberry Gym. So it faced going out towards the football field at the time. There's nothing back there now but classrooms. And
Right.
we played most of our games in there. We played some at Guy Smith.
Right. Yeah, I'd heard that Guy Smith was used some. Talk about during those years. I know you look at today's college baseball, you have a 35-man roster. Obviously, it was not that then. I know I read talking about the trip to the World Series, you guys only took like 14 players, but there were more than that on the roster that did not travel. So what was it, right around the 20-man roster or so?
Yeah, we had probably 22 guys on the team, and only Mallory said the school couldn't afford to fly, but 13 of us. So they carried the 8 position players, an extra catcher, and 4 pitchers. Made the trip, and when we got out there, they had a banquet, and of course we were the last ones they introduced at the banquet. Then they gave all the teams a car or 2 cars to drive to the ball game. Well, we were the last ones they gave a car to, and they gave us a Volkswagen bus. So we all got on the Volkswagen bus. You remember the old Beetle buses, the hippies
Right.
all dressed up in the 50s, and take off to the ball game. We'd go over there and beat their rear ends, and we'd take their cars. And we'd beat their rear ends, and we'd take their cars. And when we left, we were had a car apiece.
Well, you talk about being last as far as the team being introduced last and getting that bus last. They wanted to save the best for last, right?
Well, we had the last left.
Absolutely. And I was reading an excellent article by Al Myatt. Al produced this piece for Bonesville.net back in, I guess, early June of 2019 when the Pirates were on their way to Louisville, just like you and your good buddy there in Wilson, Mike Radford, making that trip. Unfortunately, I was unable to do so, but go ahead.
Mike is sitting right here beside me.
Absolutely. I know Mike. Understandably, thinks an awful lot of you, and I appreciate him assisting you with this tonight. I'm really excited about having you on. But Al Myatt in that article, which we'll share on the Sports Objective social media accounts when we share this podcast for the folks who are not watching right now live. Uh, Earl, I saw that Al said that you guys, before taking the bus from Omaha to Sioux City, Iowa. I just wanted to bring that up, that you guys flew into Omaha, which was pretty ironic given the Pirates' quest to get to Omaha now, the current home of the College World Series.
Yeah. And speaking of Al Mott, he's a fine man. He was a great sport writer. I enjoyed being around Al. I'd love to see him now. I know he's a principal someplace down south in North Carolina.
Yes,
But
sir. And so tell us about the tell us about the format back then. How many teams were there? Were there 8 teams?
there were 8 teams, and it was Defiance, Slippery Rock, uh, University of Omaha, Grambling, Sacramento State, and that's all I can remember. But we beat Defiance, Ohio, the first game, and Larry Creighton pitched. And then we played Sam Houston State. That was another one. Sam Houston was defending champion. They had won the year before. And Lacey West pitched against them. And we beat them. And then we played Grambling, the black school from Grambling, Louisiana. And
Right.
Tommy Agee was playing center field for them, who later went on and played with New York Mets. And Creighton pitched against Tommy Agee, and the Grambling team struck out 19 guys. And I pitched the next game against University of Omaha, and they had the leading hitter in the nation that year, hitting over 550. And I struck him out 3 times and got struck out 15 myself. So we had a pretty good season. And by the way, our shortstop gets hurt the second game, and he is Glenn. Glenn had who was an outstanding football player, and he played shortstop for us. And he had a contract for $50,000 in 1961 to play for the Minnesota. I believe it was Minnesota. No,
Wow.
played pro football, and he gets hurt, sprained his ankle, and Maury couldn't play him anymore. So we had the third baseman, which was Lacey West, outstanding basketball player, the best player in North Carolina at the time. He went from third base to shortstop. Our right fielder went to left field, and we put a pitcher in left field. So that's the way we finished up the series. And the pitcher we put out in left field was Creighton played 1 game, and Lacey West played 2 games out there, and they got a total of 5 hits between them during the rest of that series. That was quite an accomplishment, if I do say so myself.
Oh, no doubt. And shifting gears a little bit, then we'll come back to the baseball. But I know after you guys drove over to Sioux City, Iowa from Omaha, what you guys, rather than being in a hotel or motel, y'all were staying at a local college. Is that right?
Morningside College was kind enough to give us dorm rooms to stay there. And the first game it was raining when we got there, and the first game was going to be rained out, and they called some Air Force base over near them who had a helicopter, and they sent the helicopter over there and dried that field off, and we played that night.
Wow. So just talk about the atmosphere. Tell us a little more. As far as the setting that with the stadium and just the environment as far as the crowd and so forth.
We had great crowds, and of course we became the popular ones because we didn't have but just a few players. Maurer said while we were in the field one time, he heard somebody holler down, "Let's have some noise out of that dugout." He said, "There's nobody in here with me and Glenn Bass. We didn't even have a trainer." So nobody went with us but a boy from the Greenville Reflector, Cecil Heath. Cecil Heath, who's in our Sports Hall of Fame at East Carolina, was a sports writer for the Greenville Reflector at the time, and he was the only extra person we carried.
So
But
tell us.
fans were great.
Awesome. And talk about back in those years. Tell us as far as a lot of times, when you have such a major event. You touched on this a little bit earlier as far as the introduction of the teams and so on. So, what was just the atmosphere like in the city of Sioux City, Iowa, and just maybe events they had for you guys while the World Series was going on?
Well, this was 1961. You got to remember, so they didn't have a lot of fanfare for us. Just had a banquet the night before we started playing, and we were the only team that flew into there. Everybody else drove a bus, and of course we didn't have a bus to drive. We had driven cars to Washington D.C. and took a plane out to Omaha. Omaha and uh, Sioux City is about 50 miles apart. So we got a bus, rented a bus, and drove over to Sioux City on it.
Now, was that the first time that you and your teammates had flown? Do you recall that?
Yes, it was the first time I had flown, and Cotton Clayton had never flown. In fact, as I said earlier, he was one of the best basketball players in North Carolina, if not the best. He had the state record for the most points in a season until the boy that went to Carolina and was signed with Carolina and got caught for something and had to go someplace else. And Cotton said
Right.
when he didn't go to NC State because that was a premier basketball school at the time. He didn't go to NC State because they flew, and he was afraid of flying. So
Right.
when we took off, I looked over at Cotton, and he was just as white as a ghost. But it was
I can imagine so. So you know, you talked about some of the games and how things went, but just talk about the championship and how things unfolded and bringing home the title back to Greenville.
well when we won the thing, and about everything, about brought all the medals home, the championship trophy, the sportsmanship trophy, and 3 all tournament teams. Creighton and Merle Bynum and Cotton Clayton made the all tournament team. And when we got back to Greenville, we of course flew back into Washington D.C. and took, as I said, we drove cars. The whole team rode up there on 4 cars. And as we were coming back, when we got to the North Carolina line, there was a state trooper waiting for us at the North Carolina line, and he led us into Greenville. I think our Greenville Police Department car met us out in Bethel, and he led us into Greenville. And they had a little flatbed trailer out in the mall in front of the dining hall, and they put us up on the flatbed trailer. And that's the picture that you got from the team with the flag, the national championship flag.
Right.
Uh, they put us on that and introduced us to the student body. And of course, we had probably 10,000 students at a time, and it seemed like every one of them was there.
Right. And I
Well,
remember,
but
I'm sorry, go ahead.
there wasn't that many there because it was summer school.
Right. And no, I remember you mentioned that with the banner, the flag, and what it said 1961 NAIA National Champions. And I remember one of the images, looking at the media guide when I was growing up. When I think of East Carolina baseball, that's one of the things I think of, because I remember making the remark to my dad how cool that was, seeing that national championship.
Yeah, yeah, it was quite an experience.
So
Something
I
I'll
know.
get.
Something that Al Myatt had also touched on in that article was how you were asked to play football at East Carolina. So talk about that, and then the decision you made, or you actually went out for a little bit, but just stuck with baseball.
Yes, I went out for. In fact, Maurer had recruited me to play baseball and football. I was a quarterback in high school, and of course we played 6-man football, and people had never heard of 6-man football, especially the boys from Virginia. And when I got to school, I was introducing myself and stuff. And where'd you go to high school? I went to Rock Ridge, and nobody had ever heard of Rock Ridge. And what'd you play? I played everything: football, basketball, baseball. But football was 6-man. They said 6-man football. Did you play 3-man basketball? And they thought that was funny. I didn't think it was so funny, but we had a good time. And as far as going to school, I did. Uh, Bowery had asked me to go there as to play football and basketball. I didn't want to play football. There's too many men on the field in football. And anyway, I did, and it was the worst workout I have ever been through. I'd never been through a practice like that. Just the exercises and stuff we did before we started practice about wore me out.
Right. And if I'm remembering correctly, that was pretty soon, shortly after legendary coach Clarence Stasovich had arrived from Lenore Ryan. Is that right?
Coach Sass came to East Carolina in 1961.
Right. Okay. I thought I had my timeline there right, because if I remember correctly, I know we had 3 consecutive 9-1 seasons, and I couldn't remember if that was 61 to 63 or 63 to 65.
Yeah, yeah, he was outstanding coach and a good man.
Yeah, I've heard some stories about Coach Stass, so it would have been awesome
Yeah,
to have
but
had the opportunity to have met him.
I had a lot of friends that played football over there. Earl Sweet being one of them, and Ed Emery. And of course, Earl said that Coach Sasovich, somebody was getting a fight during practice, and he wouldn't break it up. He said, "Let's move practice on the other side and let them. They'll set it out. They'll they'll separate them one another." So that's the way he coached. If you got hurt, uh, trainer go over and take a look at it. He'll get up after a while. Let's move to the other side of the field and continue practicing.
And Earl, you read my mind. I was going to bring up Ed Emery, of course, Pirate football coach there in the early '80s, and led the East Carolina program to the tremendous 8-3 season in 1983, where they were nearly undefeated, on the verge of playing for national championship, and they came up 13 points shy in total against three Florida schools, and the three powers you think of when you think of college football in the state of Florida, and that being Florida State, where we lost by one, and also at the Swamp 24-17, and then I guess it was 12-7 at Miami, where we had two receivers run together in the end zone. Otherwise, we win that game, and Miami went on to win the national championship. But let's talk about Coach Emery. I knew Coach Emery had played football for us prior to becoming an assistant coach and then head coach. But yeah, tell us about Big Ed.
Well, Ed was a fraternity role, and he was outstanding to me. He's always good to me. But you always wanted him on your side if you got in a fight. Ed was a good guy and
Yeah,
an outstanding coach and a recruiter. I remember a story I can tell this one. He was recruiting the boy from big old boy from Windsor, Bertie County, and he sent one of his assistants down there to talk to him and try to talk him into coming back to East Carolina. He had been there for about 6 months and dropped out of school and just left. So he went down and asked if I'm trying to think of his name now. Tootie Robbins. Tootie Robbins. If Tootie was there, and nobody would, cause there's somebody looking for Tootie Robbins, they think, well, maybe Tootie owes some money. They don't want to talk to you. So he came back and said, "Coach, I couldn't find Tootie." "What do you mean you couldn't find him?" "Well, I asked everybody around there." He said, "Well, you don't know how to ask. You got to go to the local hangout where you all hang out and say, 'Look, you're looking for Tootie Robbins. You're from the insurance company. You got a check for him.'" And he did that. And within 20 minutes, Tootie showed up on his car looking for his check. And thank God Ed recruited him because he was an outstanding player, played in the NFL for a number of years, outstanding football player.
He most definitely was that. Tootie Robbins had played for Pirate legend Pat Dye, and then like you said, Coach Emery was understandably wanting to get Tootie back in the program, and he did that. And then Tootie Robbins went on to the tremendous career in the NFL. I remember him playing for the Phoenix Cardinals.
Yes, he did.
And maybe you can shed some light on this. I want to say a book that I read a few years ago that Coach Emery, is there truth to this story? Had he wrestled a bear? Maybe it was.
I'm sorry.
I want to say, yeah, no problem. Again, Ed Emery, you were talking about him, just being tough, and you wanted him on your side if you were to get in a fight. Coach Emery, did you ever hear a story? Did he wrestle a bear or something? I want to say something to that. Maybe I'm mistaken.
I don't know anything about the Bear story. I know he got at the alumni game. He got in a fight with a boy from Goldsboro, big old
Okay.
boy that played in the NFL for us. Uh, and his son lives in Greenville now. He played baseball for East Carolina. One of the legendary boys from Goldsboro. I'll try to think of his name in a minute. Lou Hallows. Lou
Okay.
Hallows. And he and Lou got in a fight during the alumni game. I mean, had been teammates a couple of years before, but Lou had graduated and was in pro ball, like I said, when the time. And of course, he and Ed had a disagreement on the field, and they were out fighting during the spring game.
Yeah. Well, that story about the bear, I probably dreamed that up, either that or who knows, maybe it was mentioned in a book. Is maybe who knows, maybe an urban legend of sorts, due to Coach Emmett stuff. But and talk about your time after East Carolina. I know you opened a sporting goods store, and you've done that for years and years.
Well, I have taught for 2.5 years at Fremont, right out of college, and uh, lost 10 football games in a row in 1964. And I said, there got to be something else I could do. I'd never been used to losing in my life. So I, a local sporting goods guy named Gene Summerlin called on us. And I said, Gene, have you ever thought about going into business for yourself? He said, yeah. I said, well, let's try to pull a sporting goods store in Wilson. Of course, they had one at the time, but it was not a traveling store. They didn't call on schools and stuff. So we started that in 1965 called Sportsville. And I have been in that business ever since. In 1983, Gene and I separated, and I opened my own store named Earl Boykin Sports, which is still operating in Brentwood Shopping Center. And I have enjoyed every minute of it,
So,
except for the last about 6 months. I've been I fell and broke my hip, and I've been kind of housebound since this with the covert and the
right.
broken hip. I haven't been to the store that much, but anyway,
But
uh,
talk about you mentioned everything going on with the COVID-19 pandemic since the middle of last March. So over the last 10 months or so, just tell us, from someone that's in the sporting goods business, and supplying everything that's necessary, for your Wilson County high schools, like Pike, etc. But just talk about the challenges of that the pandemic have presented.
it has really been a challenge. We have had to sell things that I never thought we'd be selling. We are now selling uh, masks, uh, disinfectant. We even got in a shipment of bullets last week, and of course we sold them out in 3 days. So we're trying to get some more bullets. Everybody's looking at bullets at a time. But it's been a good living for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had some great help. Great guys were running the store and girls. and I've thoroughly enjoyed my time there.
Now, as a result of being in the sporting goods business and just down through the years, obviously you're interacting with a lot of local known commodities in terms of high school coaches and so forth. But did you ever cross paths with any famous athletes from the state of North Carolina or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I run into them all the time. Uh, in fact, we played with one Marion Talton, who's a good friend, and he played with the Giants and Kansas City. And of course, one of our teammates played with Toronto Blue Jays named Floyd Wicker. He was the only one. We had 7 guys off our team to sign pro, and he was the only one that made it to the big leagues. Floyd had started with St. Louis and then went to with Toronto, and he was up there for 3 years. I thought we had some that were a little were better, but through different things, like Creighton was a really good pitcher, and he hurt his arm in South Dakota. They sent him to South Dakota as soon as he got back to Greenville. And it was cold up there. He hurt his arm. He never could throw quite as good since then.
Right. You actually bring up, you talk about an arm injury. Tell us about obviously things, not only a coach's approach because of all the knowledge that we have as far as injuries and things that we can do in terms of strength and conditioning, et cetera, to take care of a pitcher's arm. But talk about back in those days, it was nothing for a pitcher's pitch count to get significantly higher than it is now.
Well, they didn't even count pitches back then, and the coaches didn't call balls and strikes from the dugout. It was a completely different ball game. Uh, you were the pitcher for the day. In fact, in the national playoffs, Lacey West was pitching the final game against Sacramento State, and they got hot in about the second or third inning and scored a bunch of runs, and they were up like 12-2 after about 3 innings. And Lacey was just struggling. They were hitting him all over the park. Of course, they had a good team. And Maurer went out to him and said, "Look, Lacey, I know you don't want to be out here to hitting you hard, but I'm not going to waste an old pitcher. You're going to be the rest pitcher for the rest of the game. We're not wasting an old pitcher out here. We'll go ahead and lose this game because we hadn't lost, and they had already lost the game. It was double elimination. So he finished the game up. We lost by about 8, but I guess they ran all their runs out in that game because we beat them by 6 the next game.
Right.
You were the pitcher for that day.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And shifting gears a little bit, Earl, I know you're a very avid follower of East Carolina baseball and just East Carolina athletics in general. And that's where I had the opportunity to meet you is at Clark LeClaire Stadium, watching the Pirates. So, and I talked about earlier in the show how you had made the Louisville Super Regional back in 2019. And so just talk about you following the program. You're a season ticket holder. You had the opportunity to throw out the first pitch a few seasons ago. And so just talk about your love of the Pirates and, loving to be at Clark LeClaire Stadium watching Cliff Godwin's ball club.
Well, I'll tell you, it's makes my week when we got a couple of home games and me and Mike can go over there. He has since left to go home, but Mike is a godsend for me. He takes me to all the ball games, and I thoroughly enjoy it. It's a good brand of baseball. Our coach is outstanding man and baseball man. He has recruited well. He has got us where we're in the top 10 consistently, and we're going to continue it, I think. I look forward to seeing what this season's going to bring. I'm really a East Carolina fan. I've been in the Pirate Club for the last 40 years. I love, I support the baseball program and go to all the football games. And I'm looking forward to next year in football. This is the first year that I didn't see a football game in person since 1975.
Wow. Yeah. Um, yeah. Hate that that was the case, but certainly more than understandable why you didn't. Don't want to do anything to jeopardize your health. But the good news is you're able to watch the Pirates on TV this year. Like you're saying, I think Mike Houston definitely has that program headed back in the direction it needs to be, where we're going to be going to bowl games on an annual basis and hopefully competing for an American Athletic Conference championship.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And my bucket list is to go to the national playoffs in Omaha. I'm looking forward to that, and I've told our coach that. Cliff said, "Don't worry, before you die, you're gonna get to go." So I'm looking forward to it. We'll be
Absolutely.
right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. We had a little bit of a delay there.
No problem. I was saying I'm looking forward to going to Omaha. That's on my bucket list.
No doubt. I will be right there with you, Lord willing, when that happens. Like you're saying, Cliff Godwin, Jeff Palumbo, Jason Dietrich, and this coaching staff, they continue to stack talent on talent. And with the talent that they're assembling in Greenville, with our roster being what it is, it's only a matter of time before we break through and get to Omaha. And I can only imagine what it will be like when that does happen. Our pitching staff is deeper than it's ever been.
Yeah. Well, I certainly hope so. Well, that's what carries your team is a good pitching staff, I think. Of course, good hitters are hard to come by too. But we have always had good hitters, and we're gonna have more this year.
No doubt. And
Done a job recruiting, keeping us fresh guys in there, and we hope we got everybody back from last year, with except the seniors that graduated.
one of the top guys we have back on the mound, Earl, is, of course, Gavin Williams, the 6'6" right hander. And talk about Gavin, Gavin can get it up there to 100 plus.
Yeah, he that was the first time I had ever seen 100 miles an hour on the scoreboard. It was the first pitch against was it NC State or Campbell last year?
Are you talking about the game in the regional?
Or
When,
year before last? Yeah,
yeah, we played Campbell in that regional championship, but if you're talking about a game in Greenville, that was probably it. As far as
that
there was a game against North Carolina at the Durham Bulls Athletic Park, and that night against the Tar Heels, that was game two of that 3-game series. I guess it was 2018, and and that pitch that night against the Tar Heels was at least 100, if not 101. And I remember being on social media and people from Baseball America and Kendall Rogers from D1 Baseball, they were talking about how Gavin Williams had just hit triple digits in Durham.
yeah, I remember that he threw a 101, but I was not at that game. one of the few games I missed. But I look forward to seeing him throw his film this year.
No doubt about it.
The year older, you're stronger.
Yeah. Hopefully some Pirate fans will be able to get out to Clark LeClaire Stadium, but not. The good news is we're able to watch the games online now, which wasn't the case all that many years ago. Thinking back to, I remember when Coach O, Gary Overton, East Carolina's all-time winningest coach, was in charge there in the late '90s before Coach LeClaire took over. I guess '97 was Coach O's last year. But Coach O's final year, we were playing in the CAA tournament at Granger Stadium in Kinston, and we didn't even have a game tracker. We had to call the press box to get a score.
Well, things have changed, haven't they?
Yep, and certainly enjoy checking out the Pirates online whenever I'm able to see them in person.
When I played, and now they have 3 or 4 different hats and at least a half a dozen different uniforms. When I played, we had one hat, and it was a Scully, a plastic Scully with the interlocking EC on the front of it. And that's what you wore on the field, at bat, and in the dugout. Everybody wore a Scully. We didn't have any hats. A felt hat.
Right, and you talk about that awesome looking hat with the interlocking EC. They remade those a few years ago, and I actually purchased one. But with my big head, the flex fit hat was not working for me, so I unfortunately had to return it to the UBE. But hopefully, I'll make that hat again, and if not, heck, for my individual use, I'll go out and have one made, because it's not like I'm trying to sell it. I just want it for myself. It's a sharp looking hat, and you actually have it on right now.
We have an embroidery shop at our store, and we can make a hat for you.
I just need to order me a hat that will fit my big head, and
I'll be glad to give you one.
and we'll have to make that happen. And the one I ordered, it had the interlocking EC as you have on right now, and then they had 1961 NAIA National Champions on the side of it, and then the old school Pirate on the back.
Yeah, we can put the Lord's Prayer on it if you want to.
Well, Earl, it's been a blast catching up. I know let me put some of the comments on the screen. And this one particular comment I wanted to put up from William Grant, better known as Bubba. Also, of course, the brother of Beth Grant, the famous actress. So Bubba Grant chimed in. He said, "Oh my, I love this so much. Thank you." So you're certainly welcome, Bubba. We appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate everyone that's tuning in right now. But Earl, before we wrap this up and get out of here, I wanted to bring pgxgloves.com. They're our sponsor, and pgxgloves.com is owned by none other than Mark Minikazi, who played third base for the Pirates back in the Randy Mazie era. When the Pirates had that 51 win team in 2004, was playing third base for East Carolina. Then he was a tremendous player.
I'm sorry, who is that?
Mark Minikazi, a native of Pennsylvania. He played for us from 2003 to 2005. And Kaz was a tremendous third baseman, and he swung the bat very well also.
Okay. Well, good. I'll remember that name.
But Kaz played for years, played a decade plus minor league baseball and several different organizations. But Kaz was nice enough to partner with us for 23 Jungle Tales and pgxgloves.com. I'll put the logo up on the screen here. pgxgloves.com, making customized those personalized baseball gloves, also batting gloves, football gloves, golf gloves, and other swag, you name it. Give Kaz a look. He's nice enough to give us 25% off all products on pgxgloves.com. If you'll simply use the promo code TheSportsOBJ, as you see scrolling across the bottom of your screen right now for our viewers. Again, promo code TheSportsOBJ, 25% off any of those things you see on the screen and anything that PGX Gloves offers on their website. So we appreciate the partnership with those guys and look forward to continuing that partnership for years to come. But again, Earl, we appreciate your time this evening. You've been very generous sitting down with us for 45 minutes or so now. So just before we wrap things up, you have a message for Pirate Nation?
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. I've enjoyed it. Enjoyed talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you in baseball season. When's our first game?
If something doesn't change, we're scheduled to play the University of Rhode Island on Friday, February 19th.
Okay, I'll see you there. Bubba, thanks a lot.
Sounds good. Pirate Nation, you've been watching 23 Jungle Tales on the Sports Objective podcast. We appreciate you tuning in. And as always, go Pirates.
That was a live
You've been listening to 23 Jungle Tales on the Sports Objective, the unofficial podcast of the Pirates. All these interviews and our other content can be seen on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. The audio can be heard anywhere you listen to our show, including but not limited to Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media on Twitter at TheSportsOBJ, on Instagram at The Sports Objective. Like and follow us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.